Welcome back, Watt Warriors. This is Roy with Aero Pro Coaching, coming to you with a bike fit tip. So saddles are always an issue. A lot of people have issues with saddles, whether it's numbness or pain. So there are usually two categories of discomfort or issues with saddles. One is numbness and the other is pain. Pain being like sit bone or pressure in certain bony parts. Maybe it's the saddle, the hardness of the saddle, or the bibs. And the other one is numbness. We're going to tackle numbness today because numbness is super important. If you've experienced numbness when you're in a saddle, it is extremely important you get that corrected. Now here's the issue. A lot of times people will go, hey, I'm experiencing numbness with my saddle, it's not good. You go to a bike shop or you go to a place that sells saddles, and what they do is they go, hey, this is the saddle that's worked for us, or this is the saddle that works for me, or they sit you down on this thing that measures your sit bones, and they hand you a saddle that matches the width of your ass or your sit bones, and you take it, you put it on your bike, and it doesn't work. And then you're like, buy another saddle because you heard a friend said, hey, this ISM saddle took away all my pain and issues. So you put that on your saddle, that doesn't work. You go and buy an SMP saddle. You buy all these different saddles and none of them work. And here's the issue. This is why it's not working for you, because every time you put on a different saddle, your position on the bike changes. So today I work with an athlete. He's having lots of numbness, experienced lots of issues with his saddle. And what we did today was we took him through like 4 different saddles. And so we started with one saddle, we replaced it, went to the other saddle, replaced it, went with another saddle. And what I did is I used Retool. I used my scanner, this Retool scanner right here. I used this scanner to scan their position, meaning I took a recording of their bike fit numbers, how far their leg was reaching, how far they were reaching to the bars, how far their knee was behind or forward. All of these measurements, the body measurements, I took those down on one saddle, and I recorded that. And I said, hey, how do you feel? He gave me some feedback. Then I swapped it out. I put a new saddle on. When I put the new saddle on, I recorded his body measurements. They were different. The saddle height was different. The reach to the bars were different. The forward and after the saddle was different. So then what I did is, using my Retool scanner, I was able to adjust the new saddle to match the same measurements, the same body measurements as the first saddle. So then the only thing that we're changing is the saddle. The issue is when we go and replace our saddles, we're not only replacing the saddle, we're replacing the position of that saddle. We're replacing the position of the rider. So maybe the rider's sitting too low now, or too far forward. So we're changing too many variables. So if you want to truly find out which saddle is best for you, or to narrow down those saddles, it's ideal to have 6 or 7 saddles. Then you can come into a bike fitting using Retool. We can check your current position. Then we could adjust each saddle to match that position. So the only thing we're changing is the saddle. So why is that important? Well, if I am on this saddle, okay, I'll use my little dummy here, and I'm seated here on the saddle, the height of the saddle, the forward and aft of the saddle, everything is dictated by how I sit on this saddle. This particular saddle is an SMP, and it has a little valley in here. You're supposed to sit on it in a certain way. When you sit here, your sit bones, everything is going to sit on the saddle in a certain way. You're going to reach to the bars a certain way. It's going to support your pelvis in a different way. So we take the SMP, and then I switch it to this Pro Shimano Falcon saddle. It is a flat saddle. It doesn't have the little valley in there. So then this athlete is going to sit on this saddle differently. Maybe they sit further back because there's no valley. Maybe they sit a little further forward. Maybe the width of the saddle pushes them in one direction or the other. So then that's going to affect the forward and aft position of the saddle. Also, the height of this saddle. So this saddle, the SMP saddle here, the height is a lot higher. The height on this is not as high. So that's going to dictate how high we make this saddle. So everybody sits on the saddle differently, depending on that saddle. That's why you can't just swap the saddle, measure it, and be on your way, because how I sit on an SMP, how I sit on this Shimano Pro, and how I sit on the Physique saddle will always be different. The ideal way to position a saddle is spend about an hour, hour and a half with your bike fitter. Have them keep your body measurements the same. So as you're switching from saddle to saddle, they are remeasuring you to keep your body measurements the same. Then the only thing that is changing is the saddle, and then you can say, hey, this one feels better, this is the pressure, so forth and so on. Then you will take that, once you dial it in, go test ride it. After you get outside and ride for a couple hours, you'll know. If you're getting numbness, that's not the saddle for you. If the numbness goes away, things are looking better. That's all we have for you on picking out the right saddle. Up your watts.